The morning frost crunched beneath Marcus Webb's boots as he trudged toward the northern fence line of his farm. The sun hadn't yet crested the horizon, painting the Kansas sky in shades of deep purple and amber. He'd been a single father for 3 years now, ever since Sarah passed, and the farm had become both his burden and his salvation. His daughter Emma still slept soundly in the farmhouse, her alarm set for another hour. Something was wrong with the fence again. The cattle had been restless all night, and Marcus suspected coyotes. What he found instead would change everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. 2 figures lay tangled in the barbed wire, their bodies wrapped in what appeared to be torn metallic fabric. Marcus's first thought was that someone had dumped mannequins on his property, some sick prank. But as he approached, one of them moved. A sound emerged, somewhere between a whimper and a mechanical hum. They weren't human. Their skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, like oil on water, and their faces, though vaguely humanoid, had features that were distinctly alien: larger eyes, no visible nose, mouths that seemed too small. They couldn't have been more than adolescents, perhaps the equivalent of 12 or 13 in human years. Their wrists were bound with some kind of energy restraints that pulsed with a sickly orange light, and the barbed wire had torn into their strange flesh, leaking a silver-blue substance that Marcus's mind struggled to accept as blood. Most men would have run. Some would have called the authorities immediately. Marcus Webb did neither. He knelt down slowly, his weathered hands reaching for the wire cutters on his belt. "Easy now," he murmured in the same tone he used with spooked horses. "I'm not going to hurt you." The 2 beings looked at each other, their large eyes communicating something Marcus couldn't understand. Fear, certainly, but also confusion. Whatever they'd expected from a human, this wasn't it. Marcus worked carefully, cutting away the barbed wire strand by strand. The energy restraints were another matter. They looked sophisticated, probably impossible to remove without the right technology. But Marcus had been a combat engineer before he became a farmer, and if there was one thing 20 years of fixing broken things had taught him, it was that everything had a weak point. He examined the restraints, noting how they pulsed. Energy systems needed power sources. He traced the device with his fingers until he found a small node where the bands connected. Using the tip of his knife, carefully, so carefully, he pried at the seam. The restraints sparked once, twice, then fell away with a hiss. The aliens scrambled backward, free but terrified. Marcus held up his hands, showing he was unarmed. "It's okay. You're safe here." One of them, slightly taller than the other, made a series of clicking sounds. The other responded in kind. Marcus realized with a start that they were twins, or whatever the alien equivalent might be. Their movements were synchronized, protective. They'd been through something terrible together. "Come on," Marcus said, gesturing toward the farmhouse. "Let's get you cleaned up and fed. My daughter makes a mean pancake even if you can't eat them." The galactic community would later call it the Jarek incident, the attempted trafficking of 2 juvenile Melodian diplomats by a rogue faction seeking to destabilize peace negotiations. Their ship had been sabotaged over Earth, a backwater planet not yet part of the greater galactic fold, and the twins had been ejected in an escape pod programmed to hide them until retrieval. What the criminals hadn't counted on was Marcus Webb. Over the next 48 hours, while the galaxy searched frantically for the missing diplomats, Marcus kept them hidden. He cleaned their wounds using his veterinary supplies. He let them sleep in Emma's room while she bunked with him, and his 7-year-old daughter showed them her picture books, somehow bridging the language gap through drawings and laughter. Marcus didn't call the government. He'd seen how military types handled unknowns with fear and firepower. Instead, he made them soup, taught them to feed the chickens, and let them be kids recovering from trauma. When the Melodian rescue ships finally triangulated the twins' location, they expected to find them dead or imprisoned. What they found was Marcus Webb teaching them how to throw a baseball, while Emma braided something resembling flowers into what might have been their hair. The Melodian commander, a veteran of countless first contact scenarios, stood speechless as one of the twins ran to her, chattering excitedly in their native tongue about the kind human and pancakes and something that translated roughly to dad friend. Marcus simply nodded at the armed aliens surrounding his farm. They're good kids. Been through hell. Figured they needed some peace more than they needed prodding and poking. The rescue became an incident. The incident became a story. The story became legend. Within a year, Earth's first contact protocols were rewritten based on the Webb principles: compassion before curiosity, aid before analysis, humanity before protocol. Marcus Webb, single father and Kansas farmer, became the unlikely template for how humanity would approach the stars. The galactic community had expected humans to be either hostile or terrified when confronted with alien life. They hadn't expected Marcus Webb, who looked at two terrified children, regardless of species, and simply decided to help. The Melodian twins, fully recovered and safely returned to their people, insisted on one thing: they would return to Earth someday, to visit the farm and the man who showed them that courage wasn't about weapons or technology. It was about looking at suffering and choosing kindness. Marcus Webb never sought fame or fortune. He accepted a modest compensation that secured Emma's college fund, then went back to farming. But on his mantle, next to pictures of Sarah, sat a crystalline device that projected holographic messages from across the galaxy. 2 young Melodians who'd found family in the most unexpected place, and when humanity finally took its place among the stars, they carried with them the lesson learned on a Kansas farm: that civilization isn't measured by your weapons or your ships, but by what you do when someone needs help. That's what humans do. That's what makes them extraordinary.